In parts 1 and 2 of the blending videos, there was no way to control where along the blending path a cross-section was applied. This video shows that you can force a cross-section to be applied at a particular location of the blending path by putting a node at that location and then marking it with the node marking feature. For example, here is a path that starts with a horizontal line and then becomes a curve. Assume that you want the cross-section to remain the same along the line and then widen to a larger cross-section along the curve. This requires 3 cross-sectional shapes. The first sets the cross-section at the beginning of the line. The second sets the cross-section at the junction of the line and the curve. And the third sets the cross-section at the end of the curve. The first and second cross-sectional shapes must be identical so that MillWrite does not change the shape as it travels down the line. Since they are identical, you only have to draw one of them, and then you can duplicate it to make the other. Here is the job file that shows the blending path in purple and the 3 cross-sections in dark red. However, if I were to select the blending function now, I would not get the surface that I want. To understand why not, consider that when there is only one cross-sectional shape, MillWrite applies it to the entire path. When there are 2 cross-sectional shapes, MillWrite puts one at the beginning of the path and the other at the end of the path, and then blends them together. When there are more than 2 cross-sectional shapes, the first and second set the beginning and end of the path, and the additional cross-sections are spaced evenly along the path. Therefore, when there are 3 cross-sections, the first will be placed at the beginning of the path, the third will be placed at the end, and the second will be put in the middle of the path. I want the cross-section to start widening at the curve, but as you can see, it's starting to widen at this point along the line. I will delete that surface. In order to force the second cross-section to be applied between the line and the curved section, we must mark the node at that junction. To mark the node, click the right mouse button and select the option to mark nodes. Then click the node. If you click it a second time, it will be unmarked, and clicking a third time will mark it again. MillWrite assumes that a marked node is a location for one of the additional cross-sectional shapes. Now when I select the option to blend cross-sections, MillWrite puts that second cross-section at the marked node. I will delete that surface. Now let's assume that you want to alter the cross-section along the straight line. To do that, we must insert some additional nodes. There are different ways to insert nodes. I could exit the surface mode and switch back to the 2D drawing mode. Then I could select the Edit button and choose the option to insert nodes at a certain distance along the line. But for this example, I will place the nodes visually. I will click the right mouse button for the menu and then select the option to add a node. If I single-click the left mouse button where I want a node to be placed, like this, a node will be inserted, but MillWrite will assume that I want to drag it to a different location, which I do not want to do. So I will press the Escape key to cancel. When you want to insert a node but do not want to move it, double-click instead of single-click. I want to insert 3 nodes, so I will double-click here, here, and here. I will now mark each of those 3 nodes to let MillWrite know that I want to set a cross-section for each of them. I will click the right mouse button and select the node marking option. If I click each node individually, as I did previously, then I will mark each node without changing the mode that MillWrite is in. However, I will instead draw a box around the nodes I want to mark. Notice that as soon as I start drawing a box, the top and right side of the screen changes to let me know that I am switching to the node selection mode. and to press Escape to cancel. After drawing the box, I am in the node marking function, and I can do certain editing operations on those marked nodes, such as delete them or move them. However, I don't want to do anything to them, so I will quit this function, but I want the nodes to remain marked, so I will select the option to quit, but leave the nodes marked. I now need to create 3 more cross-sectional shapes, one for each of the 3 marked nodes that I just created. The marked nodes are dividing the line into 4 segments. I want the first 2 cross-sections and the last 2 to be identical, and only the cross-section between them to be different. I need to duplicate this cross-section for each of those 2 nodes. There are different ways of duplicating a polyline, and this time I will show you a different method. I will let the mouse hover over this shape, press Ctrl-C to copy it, and press Ctrl-V to paste it. But before I paste a copy, notice that the message at the top of the screen tells me to select the destination for the copy. The mouse buttons at the lower left corner of the screen and the message along the right side of the screen also remind me that I can click the right mouse button or press the letter S on the keyboard to access the Snap menu options. So I will click the right mouse button and select the option to Set Repeat Paste On. Notice that the message at the top of the screen is changed to Paste Again and Again to remind you that you have set the Repeat Paste option to On. The message also reminds you to press the Escape key to stop the repeat paste, or you could click the right mouse button for the menu. Although this feature is not of much use when you're making only 2 copies of something, I wanted to show you how it works. So I will now paste a copy here and another here. I am finished, so I could press the Escape key, but instead I will click the right mouse button. I could turn off the repeat paste feature, but I will leave it on and select the option to quit paste. I will now draw a cross-section for this node. I will click the right mouse button and select the option to draw a polyline. And I will draw something simple. I will now split the screen vertically. Now I need to adjust the viewpoints of these 2 windows to make it easier to see what's happening. I will select the option to blend cross-sections along a path, and I will click the path, and then I will select all 6 of these cross-sections. MillWrite creates a 3D surface by applying the first cross-section to the beginning of the path, the last cross-section at the end, and the other 4 cross-sections at the 4 marked nodes. Since the window is split, MillWrite assumes that I want to alter the shape interactively, so I can now alter this cross-section in order to change the surface at that location. I can also alter the blending path if I want to.